Welcome to the And Just Like That recap review of episode 2, season 2. Spoilers up ahead. Subscribe while you're at it and thumb up the video if you're enjoying it, you guys. Listen. We just finished episode 1. All the ladies went to the Met Ball. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see them at the Met Ball. But it was a lighthearted episode. You know, there was nothing tragic happening. Like there was no... Mr. Big, like a character like Mr. Big passing away or stuff like that. It was all very lighthearted, friendly, easy breezy, a little bit comedic, what have you. Now, episode 2 starts to complicate things a little bit. The gears start grinding, right? Here are our main characters from the show, more or less. Maybe a few are missing, but right off the bat, let's touch base on a complication. Like, these are all kind of relationships. The ladies, more or less, all have relationships. Either they're married or they're dating. However, Dr. Naya is the big first falling apart relationship of season 2. Why? Because her hubby isn't even with her at the moment. The husband is on tour, traveling. She's home alone. She is a professor. She horny. And so she kind of, she's at a bar, just drinking with this ginormous bag. And I'm thinking to myself, that's an ugly bag. That bag occupies half the screen. Is that a product placement? You best believe it is. But then I thought to myself, why would they do something like that? Usually when they have bags as product placements, they're kind of a little bit more demure, a little bit more elegant. But this bag was huge. Huge. So Naya is sitting at the bar. This ginormous bag is like she's sitting here. The bag is here. It occupies half the screen. And I'm like, this is so ugly. This is so ugly. And then, of course, we realize there's a reason. This handsome fella comes by to her and says, are you using this bag as a wall to protect you from any other guy? Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And then I'm like, oh, that's why the bag was so big and ugly. She says, oh, no. She moves the bag away. And I'm like, okay. They needed a big bag to make it clear to us that she's using it to protect herself. Gotcha. So anyway, still ugly bag. Didn't like the bag. The guy starts flirting with her. She shows him the wedding ring and she's like, I is taken, honey. So he's like, oh, my bad, but you're cute. So anyway, he leaves now. She goes home, horny, calls her hubby, wants to have a little bit of Skype, FaceTime, whatever app they're using. And she's in her negligee and she's all ready for it. She ready for it. And he's like, hold that negligee, darling. I do not want that nip to slip because there's another chick in my bedroom, in my hotel room bedroom. And Dr. Naya is like, say what now? And he's like, oh, yes, darling. Let me just turn the phone to show this young lady who's with a guitar. You know, her husband's a musician, right? He's on the road. And this chick is like, ding, 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 ding. She's playing his guitar, if you know what I mean. And Naya is like, oh, ya got another chick in your... No. She hangs up on him. She's furious. We have like the next day she's at home in his room. He's a musician, right? He has all these guitars hanging off his walls, paintings, little drawings, little knickknacks, stuff that he collected throughout the years at concerts or what have you. Because in season 1, Dr. Naya became friends with Miranda. She's calling Miranda. Miranda is now in LA, by the way. She calls Miranda to tell her how terrible all this situation is. The guy's a douchebag. She's going to leave him. You know, this is awful. And she's going to throw away all his guitars. She's going to throw away all his artworks. Like, she is having a nervous breakdown. She also tells him, before she hangs up on him the night before, that she also had an opportunity to go to bed with a really handsome fella. But she didn't. But she could. So at this point, it seems as though the husband is saying, well, then go for it. But we don't really know. It just feels that way. So I'm thinking this is the first relationship of all these girls or ladies that is going to kind of fall apart. And sooner or later, they're all going to fall apart. They have to. Otherwise, how do we go along with the storyline, right? I'm also thinking, when is Charlotte's relationship going to kind of blast with Harry? Because, I mean, it's a little bit too conservative and a little bit too repetitive. And it seems like the writers are using Charlotte's kids, Lily and Rose here, as the only way to push forth her story with Harry. Feels a little bit like that. Why am I saying this? Because, I mean, she's happy with Harry. There's nothing wrong with their relationship. Or so it seems. So the only complications we get is kind of the interaction that she has with her kids. Her kids are growing up, growing pains, teenage years, all of that, psychology going in. So it's kind of a really boring storyline that Charlotte has with her husband. There is none. It's a functional relationship, sexually and intellectually, so it seems. So it's kind of, there's no friction there. The only friction is with the kids. And so in this episode, what happens is Lily wants instruments, or one particular type of piano instrument or whatever, even though they already have like a really expensive piano in their house. But she wants an electric one or something like that. She has a beautiful voice. She's going through the motions. She writes songs, and the lyrics are very much about, my existence is troubled. Nobody understands, the stuff teenage kids goes through. Of course, when Charlotte hears her daughter sing those texts and lyrics, she's very sad. She probably starts thinking, oh, I'm not a good mom, but she is a good mom. It's just the kids go through that phase. But Charlotte is also very strict together with Harry and says, you cannot get this new instrument. You already have an instrument, and, do something else, like find, earn your money to do it. Find a way to get the money to buy this instrument, blah, 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 blah. So what does Lily do? Lily sells her Chanel wardrobe. Not just Chanel, but like most of her fancy fashion clothes. And this is a hysterical plot line for this episode because the writers acknowledged something. They acknowledged that what is happening on social media, on TikTok and whatever, there's been a lot of talk about the real. Now, everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's alleged and just my opinion. By the way, subscribe and thumb up the video if you're enjoying it. But we've seen Bethany Frankel throwing major shade on TikTok at the real for photographing a product that they're selling. And then when you buy that product, they send you that product, but a different item, meaning the photos were of the same model, the same style, but not of the actual piece you will be getting. Then people have been complaining that there's a lot of non-authentic products going on the real allegedly. So there's a lot of issues there. So the writers of And Just Like That kind of took that, went with it, and I love that they used the real, but they didn't want to get in trouble, so they didn't really use it. So in fact, so what happens is Lily calls the real deal to come to her home, evaluate her closet, take whatever they want from the closet and give her money for whatever they think the stuff that they're taking is worth. They give her the money, she buys the instrument. Okay, Charlotte finds out and is furious because she wants the memory of her kid's childhood, those Chanel outfits that she bought her. They're so cute. It's how Charlotte envisions her daughter growing up, but the daughter is moving on. She's like, I'm not that kid anymore that wore that Chanel dress. I'm like, imagine the kid that wears Chanel. Money. But that's besides the point. The point is that Charlotte thinks that Lily sold the stuff on the real. And so there's this little kind of back and forth where I love how the writers poked fun at the real and their moral integrity to then, right before getting in trouble for it, they correct themselves and say, Charlotte is corrected. And they tell her, no. It's not the real, it's the real deal. But too late, because we already heard the real. So The shade was delivered. We got it. Very on point, very actual. You know, it's something that is going on right now. People having issues with the real. So I loved that they were very precise about that. But also, the real deal in the show is kind of sketchy because Lily is a minor. So I don't know legally how that would work out. Like if grown-ups come to a house that's empty, there's just a minor in the house that opens the door, lets them into the closet to take whatever they want, and then they leave her money. Charlotte says, well, they've misguided you. They've profited off of a minor because they gave you too little money for what these clothes are actually worth. So Charlotte goes on this crusade to get the clothes back, in particular that one Chanel dress. So she takes Carrie along on the ride and they go to the Real Deal, one of the Real Deal standalone shops in the city. Maybe the whole show should be called Shop in the City. Real Deal in the city. So they go to the Real Deal, and this is that infamous scene where Carrie Bradshaw is wearing the J.W. Anderson pigeon clutch. Yes, we've seen quite a few people on social media wear that pigeon clutch. And enough said about that. So Carrie enters the store with the pigeon. She puts the pigeon on her head. She cradles the pigeon. She does a lot of stuff with the pigeon. The funniest scene was Carrie with the pigeon on her head. I thought, if they put the pigeon on her head, is the pigeon going to poop on her head? I thought that was hilarious. However, the comedic utilization of that pigeon was really good. Like, Carrie did all she could do with that pigeon. Like, all the funny stuff you can do with that pigeon, she did with that pigeon in the scene in the Real Deal shop. So she opens the wing of the pigeon to take the money out to pay. She puts the pigeon on her head. I mean, the pigeon does every now. I don't know if Sarah Jessica Parker came up with the choreography with the pigeon or if somebody else told her what to do. Either way, I thought it was a brilliant use of that accessory. It made me want the pigeon. Yes, it made me want that freaking pigeon. I know. It's just guilty. Guilty as charged. It made me want the pigeon. But I digress. So, the pigeon, by the way, is made of nylon, and I think it's a 3D print. It's made in China. The pigeon is worth $20 tops, but J.W. Anderson charges you like $800 for it. So anyway, we want the pigeon, but we're not getting the pigeon, or are we? So anyway, Charlotte is attacking she's on her crusade. She's attacking the lady working at the Real Deal. It's this young lady who has no clue what's going down. She literally just is a sales associate working at the cash register. And Charlotte is like, where's this dress? She's like, I don't know. It's like, what do you do with your dresses? She's like, I don't know. Like, how can I find it? She's like, I don't know. So basically, this lady just keeps saying, I don't know. Charlotte gets more and more hysterical. Carrie is supposed to be on Charlotte's side, but Carrie is, just like me, total fashion addict. She sees something cute and fancy. She touches it. So Carrie finds a Sonia Rykiel boot. Not my kind of boot, but she found one that she liked. She lifts it. She's like, they have this boot. It's in pristine condition. And Charlotte's like, focus, help me battle the Real Deal. And Charlotte and Carrie's like, yeah, oh yeah, okay. But she keeps holding that boot. You know what that means. All of us shopaholics knows what that means. Once you touched it, you don't let it go. Oh yeah, this is, by the way, the perfume I'm wearing today. Cheap and Chic by Moschino. Not sponsored, but anyway. I use it for explaining something for episode 1. You might want to watch that review to find out more about what this means. But anyway, once you hold it, you don't let it go and you end up buying it. So Carrie's holding that boot throughout the whole scene, and Charlotte is about to explode. Carrie takes her to the side and says, honey, what is this all about? You are way over the top crazy right now with this poor sales associate, and like, what is this all about? She's like, oh, and then the whole, shtick. Oh, I'm just, it's hard to let go of the childhood of your kids, and that dress was a memory, and blah, blah, blah. And then Carrie tells her, listen, maybe Lily doesn't want that anymore. She has evolved into something new. Embrace it, Charlotte. Embrace it. And then she's like, yeah, okay, fine, I will. And then Carrie says, okay, before we leave, can I buy the boots? And then she buys the boots. She buys the boots. They leave. Now, we have a little bit of a racial issue going on in this episode because Lisa, so her hubby, wants to take the kids out with the grandma. The grandma's coming to visit. Now, 2 instances happen. And I'm thinking to myself, when somebody is so wealthy, are these still issues? But apparently they are. So basically, so the kid's grandma is coming. So Lisa's daughter comes from school. She has this gorgeous hair, beautiful afro look. It's like just so beautiful, the beautiful curly hair. She looks adorable. And I kid you not, I felt so bad for her. Like, I was like, boy, they really wrote the scene to, I don't know, to really make us feel uncomfortable because, so he says, hey, my mom is coming. She cannot see our kid with that hair. Like, you can straighten the hair or do something. She's like, we have no time to straighten her hair. What are you talking about? So they made these cute little braids. She looked adorable even with braids. But I'm like, that poor kid is going to be traumatized because apparently the grandma, the whole shtick of the story is like, no, we've been deprived of everything. The white folk have always mistreated us and it's always been terrible. And so the only thing that you can, in the olden days could maintain was your dignity, and you're dignified by how you speak and how you present yourself. And so she wants her grandkids to be that sort of dignified. But I guess the grandma needs to update a little bit because there's nothing undignified about having your natural hair. It's actually really beautiful to embrace who you are. But we still have not had that conversation with the grandma. Now, a second instance that was very uncomfortable. So as the dad was taking the kids out, and they had to grab a taxi, no taxi would stop for him because he's black. The taxi drivers that were passing by were white, and he gets very upset. He kind of stops one of those taxis, stops in front of it and starts banging on the top of the hood of the taxi. The grandma is passing by with her female friends, all in her age group. She sees what happens, and her friends say, isn't that your son? And she's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. So she completely ignores him, acts like she doesn't know him. Her grandchild sees her and says, grandma, grandma. And she runs away from her grandkid. That broke my heart. Because I get it, the dignified. Then she had a conversation with her son telling him, you do not yell like that. They've taken everything from us, but they will not take away our dignity. Like, I get it. But also, my dear lady, you do not ignore your grandkid like that. That is a vile thing to do, acting like you don't recognize your own grandchild just because you're embarrassed in front of your friends about what your son did to the taxi. And he had all the right to be upset. Did he overreact? He got physical. But I get it. But he got physical. And that's an altercation that can result in illegal activities, and you can get in a lot of trouble for that. So for sure, legally speaking, he didn't do something right. Morally speaking, however, different story. Because as we know, the law does not follow morals in a parallel way. Not at all. The law is made by rich people for the rich people. That's how things come into law. Very rarely does a law pass through that was made to help out the poor, to help out minorities. Rarely. So let's be very clear here. Morals do not equal law and legalities. No. So morally speaking, I get it that he was upset. Legally, the grandma could be like, hey, you could have gotten in a lot of trouble. And then she's right, but she's not right morally, because morally she literally faked, like she acted like she doesn't know him. And what is even worse, she acted like she didn't know her grandchild. And her granddaughter didn't do anything wrong. Her granddaughter was totally confused. She didn't know what was going on. She was like, why isn't the car stopping? When my white friend's dad stops a cab, it always stops. Why doesn't a cab stop for us? She was so confused. And then her grandma acts like she doesn't know her. That poor kid. I feel so sorry for that kid. So there's that scene. And I felt like it was a very strange to plant that into this episode in that way. I felt like, where are we going with this now? I guess he's going to have a more in-depth conversation with his mother about how times are changing and how sometimes it's not enough to just be dignified. Sometimes you have to also tell people you're doing something wrong. Just my opinion. Now, we have an issue also. You see, the facade of Miranda and Che is also starting to crack. At least at the beginning of the episode. So we have Miranda and Che in LA, little rhyme. Che is about to start filming Che Pasa. Now, the show about Che's life. So I guess the writers thought it was funny and kind of cringe in a good way, because que pasa should be the original way of saying it, which means what's up, spelled Q-U-E, que pasa, you know, what's up, what's up, what's going on. But then they turned it into Che Pasa, and I mean, yeah, God. Anyway, so Tony Danza is the special guest star of this episode, and he looks mighty fine. That man ages like fine wine, doesn't he? So Tony Danza is in the show, well, at least in this episode, and he's supposed to be Che's father. Now, Tony Danza is a bit of a bitch in this episode, though, you know? And I'm like, interesting that Tony Danza would accept to do this part. Well, for the money, honey. But, and why am I saying this? Follow me here, you guys. Because Tony Danza is acting as himself in this show. So it's not like he's playing out another character with another name. No, no, no. He is Tony Danza as Tony Danza in the show. But he meets up with Che to tell Che, listen, I know I'm your dad in the show. They cast me as your father in the show, but your father is Spanish. And I'm not Spanish. I'm Italian. I don't want to get canceled. I don't want people out there to come for me for cultural appropriation of some sort. So let's do it like this. I don't care. He didn't say this, but I'm interpreting between the lines, literally how Che felt. It's as if like Tony Danza said, I don't care about you. I only care about me. So let's reinvent your life. And Che's like, this sitcom is literally about my life. My father is Spanish. Tony Danza's like, yeah, but I'm not. So we're going to make your father Italian. We can make your mom Spanish. And Che's like, my mom is not Spanish, though. Like, I'm Irish, of Irish descent, Irish something, something mix. So Che's like, my dad is Spanish. Mom is Irish, something else. He's like, doesn't matter. We're going to make your mom Spanish. I'm going to be Italian. Che's like, there's nothing Italian in me. And I thought, ooh, this is quite ugly. Because we hear Tony Danza say this as Tony Danza, not as a character. Not so good, you know? And I thought that doesn't put him in a good... I don't know. I felt iffy about Tony Danza all of a sudden after his dinner with Che. Louis says dad was Mexican. Yes, dad was Mexican. We're having doubts about the mother. If she was Irish, something, something. Anyway. So, yeah, but all of this is happening. Now, Miranda wanted to meet Tony Danza. Miranda is totally fangirling out when she sees Tony Danza at the stand-up comedy show when she went to see Che do stand-up comedy. Now, Che's stand-up comedy act, those couple of jokes that they wrote for Che were terrible. And again, I'm like, why are the writers sabotaging Sarah Ramirez so much? Like, they could have written a good joke for Che, but no. They did not write a good joke for Che, alas. So anyway, Miranda went to see Che, saw Tony Danza, wanted to hug Che. in one of those moments after the show, while merch was being debated and discussed, like kind of in the auditorium somewhere, shop area, whatever. And Che's like, "Don't touch me," and Miranda feels rejected. Miranda feels like, "What's wrong?" So they have a conversation later. Che starts crying and saying, "Miranda, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be such a bitch to you, but like, I feel so insecure." Earlier on, we also see Che struggling to be themselves in front of the producers of the show, trying to turn Che into something that Che is not, just for the sake of what the producers think would sell the show better. So they're trying to make Che wear stuff that Che doesn't want to wear. They're trying to make Che change their hair in a way that Che doesn't want their hair to be. They want Che to start wearing a suit. Che says, "I'm comfortable in a shirt, really. That's just who I am." And they're like, "Yeah, but this is better. And color your hair blue." And Che's like, "But that's not me then." So I was totally on Che's side. I was like, that you can't, yes, support Che the way they are. Don't push them to be something they're not. So I felt for Che in that moment. And then apparently they were also telling Che to lose weight. And this is why Che became very self-conscious about their belly. So when Miranda came to hug Che was like, "Don't touch me," because they felt bad about their belly. So they finally break down at home because Miranda's like, "Hey, you don't like me anymore." And Che says, no, I love you. Or I don't know if love was used, but definitely said, "No, it's not you, it's me. I feel so ugly. Hollywood and Los Angeles is telling me I'm too fat. They're telling me I don't look good enough for this part. They're telling me I have to change how I look. I have to change how I dress. I have to lose weight." So I feel so insecure right now. So of course Miranda says, "You're so beautiful," and hugs them. And then Che says, "Well, yes, I am beautiful. Thank you for telling me that. Let's have a pizza." And they order a pizza. So that was a cute moment of bonding. However, there's another situation that happens in this episode, which is hilarious. Remember at the beginning, I was telling you that Dr. Naya called Miranda to tell her that she's going to throw away all the guitars of her hubby because he wants to have an affair with that blonde little chick in his hotel room. What I didn't tell you is that Dr. Naya called Miranda while Miranda was trying to do something with her life. So Miranda doesn't know what to do in LA. Che is out working all day or all night. So Miranda's trying to find a purpose for herself in LA. So we know that Miranda had issues with drinking in season 1. Now in season 2, she has recognized and acknowledged the fact that she is an alcoholic, an addict. So she's going to the AA meetings in LA, right? So she goes to an AA meeting where she meets a woman who tells her, "Hey, if you have more spare time on your hands, you can come help us clean up the beaches of LA. It's charity work, but it can kind of make you feel good about yourself because you're doing something good for the environment. And it also makes you feel accomplished and fulfilled if you don't have anything else to do anyway, because you have a lot of free time on your hands while you're waiting for Che to come back home." So Miranda says, "Yeah, you know what? I'll do it." So Miranda goes with that chick to the beach and they start cleaning up all the algae. What's the plural of algae? Algae? Whatever. Seaweed. She starts cleaning up the seaweed. That's when the phone call arrives. That's when Naya calls to say what happened with the hubby. And Miranda is trying to talk with Naya, but like another fellow co-cleaner of the beach is looking at her and judging her like, "You're not here for your entertainment, honey. Stop the phone call and get back to cleaning." So Miranda hangs up, gets back to cleaning. The lady that drove her to the beach has to leave earlier to pick her kids up from school or something. And Miranda says, "Oh, that's fine. I'll grab an Uber later." However, by the time she's done cleaning the beach, everybody else left. She's alone on the beach. She lost her phone. She can't call an Uber. She doesn't have a phone anymore. So she goes ballistic, starts digging through the seaweed, digging through the sand, hoping to find her phone. Needless to say, she doesn't find her phone. She's completely lost in the middle of nowhere. Walks up to a couple of surfer dudes who offer her some weed. She says no, but she says, please, can I use your phone? And she doesn't know Che's number. And then she goes, oh my God, I don't know anything about Che. I don't even know their number. But she remembers Carrie's number. She calls Carrie, says, Carrie, give me Che's number. I have to call Che. I'm stranded here. Carrie gives the number. Miranda calls Che, says, I know nothing about you. You know, there's like, oh my God, I don't even know your phone number. Che's like, well, nobody knows anybody's phone number nowadays. Everything is digital. And Che says, but I have an idea. Because Miranda says, what are we going to do? You got to meet with Tony Danza. You got to have your conversation about the show with Tony Danza. We were supposed to have dinner together. Now I can't make it back home in time. So you go with Tony Danza on your own, have your dinner with Tony Danza or lunch. And that's where Tony Danza tells Che, I don't want to be your Mexican dad. I want to be your Italian dad. While all of this is happening, somebody comes to pick up Miranda. Somebody that Che organized to pick up Miranda. Miranda gets picked up by this guy in this gorgeous purple truck. Now that's a purple I want to have. Little my Samantha moment. And so the purple truck picks her up. She sits down and says, so thank you so much for picking me up, but who might you be? The guy says, oh, I'm Che's husband. Now Miranda, at this point, she knows she has no clue. Che never told her that they were married to a dude and that they were still married to a dude. Che was in New York. The dude is living in LA. Miranda's like, you're Che's husband? Well, we'll go. And the guy's like, yeah. So where can I drop you off? She's like, home. So Miranda is now at home waiting for Che to finish dinner with Tony. Che comes home and Miranda's like, you're married? I don't know your phone number. You know, all of this, like all of these problems, you know, I can't hug you. There's like nothing, like what is going on here? And Che says, oh yeah, I was just too lazy to get divorced from him. Like we was like together, but like, whatever. It's like, whatever. Miranda's like, this is not whatever. Like, and then Che says, this is my phone number. And then they tell her the phone number. And then Miranda memorizes the phone number. And it's kind of a bonding moment. But truth be told, it also felt very much like the cracks are there in this ceiling. However, don't think that Che is going to be gone pretty soon. Because look at this. I mean, I say like this poster looks like the Final Supper. Why are they reenacting the Final Supper? And who's Judas? Was Judas on the left or on the right side of Christ in that Leonardo da Vinci painting? Because if Carrie's supposed to be Jesus, which one of the two is the Judas moment here? Or which one of the two is the Judas moment here? A bit weird, this table setup, if you ask me. But, and just like that, Naya's relationship collapsed and Miranda's and Che's is starting to wibble wobble. You know, like kids, the first teeth that they have, the first ones that kind of swim out and fall out and then their final teeth grow in. It almost feels like something is going to happen. We haven't seen Steve yet, so we don't know. Is Miranda going to go back to Steve? Because I still believe that Steve was amazing and they've not done justice by Steve in the first season. I think they really mistreated him a lot. So, plus, we're definitely going to be seeing Miranda's and Steve's son. There he is in season 2. So I'm sure Steve is going to come into play sooner or later. This basically ends episode 2 of And Just Like That. There's definitely some build-up. As you can see, episode 1, go check out my review of episode 1. It all started lighthearted and vibey, But now with episode 2, we're already getting into the nitty-gritty of stuff. There's going to be 11 episodes this season. So we're going to have to wait another 9 episodes to get to finally see Samantha in that one cameo snippet of her on the phone. But hey, I'm living on a day-to-day basis, just surviving to get to see Sam for that one scene, you know, living ferret. So, oh, there was one more instance. Oh, thanks, Debbie. Yes, with Seema. So that one, you see, I didn't really feel that storyline that much. That's why it's kind of passed by me. Well, first of all, Seema is, I want to say almost always when we see Seema, we see her wearing a Fendi bag. Okay, I've seen her wear a Fendi peekaboo. I think she also had a baguette. And they're usually neutral tones. And there was also a third one. I think I saw her wear 3 Fendi bags in one episode. So her issue was, like we've seen already, the situation with the guy that she's dating. He's also still married. Or lives with his ex still in the same house. So Seema is like, okay, bye. We're not doing this. She goes to complain about this, as apparently she always does, to her hairstylist. The hairstylist she's been going to for decades. And the guy kind of is very rough to her and tells her like what he thinks about the situation. She doesn't like being called out. She says, I'm never coming back to you again. She, you know, does a huge, kind of raises a huge scene and leaves. But then comes back after several days because her hair is a mess. She can't deal with her hair without him. He kind of knew that nobody else would be able to tame that lioness's hair as good as he can. So when she does finally come back to him and apologizes, he takes her back and tells to everybody else in the space, Seema is my #1 client. And I don't know, well, she kind of ends it with the guy, with the Prada. I still call him the Prada guy because in the original Sex and the City, he was the Prada worker. But he's a different character now. He kind of owns a couple of clubs, you know, in the city. So anyway, he's kind of shocked that she's kind of like not having it. So he wants to maybe still try something with her. We don't know. We're going to see in episode 3, they might have another interaction with each other or not. But that relationship seems, but to be honest with you, I never really felt that relationship was going anywhere already in season 1. And why am I saying this? Just because the way that kind of I'm used to the writing of, not just and Just Like That, but also of Sex and the City, it's like usually when the guys that these ladies are dating, when they are club owners, musicians, like entertainers, book authors, writers, like, and this is something that I find really a little bit despicable, if I have to be honest with you, because it almost feels like the showrunners are jealous. Like they don't want their characters to date other creative people. Like they're bitter, like they've had bad experiences with creative people. So they're like, never date a creative person. Why am I saying this? Because whenever the girls date somebody who's creative, it never ends well. It always falls apart. The relationship falls apart. So, you know, when Carrie dated Berger, the book writer, fell apart. When she dated the other book writer, the guy who couldn't get a hard on, oh no, the guy who always came after 5 seconds, ended well, and didn't end well. You know, now the club owner, Naya's musician. Whenever there was like something creative going on with the guy, they end up not being with them. Which is such a cliche if you think about it. Who does Carrie marry? A business guy. Stable income. All the artistic guys she dated, doesn't care. She ended up with Mr. Big. Charlotte, okay, we knew from the get-go she wanted a lawyer or a business dude, and she got herself a lawyer. Miranda, she could afford to marry a waiter, but a waiter is not creative. A waiter, he's a nice guy, does the job, follows orders. She's the lawyer. So they allowed her to marry somebody underneath her. Like she was the token successful woman that had the power. So she could marry somebody beneath her, but still not a creative person. She married the little guy who does the job. You see? And Samantha, we don't know how it would have gone for Samantha had they written her into the show if Kim Cattrall wanted to come back. I don't know how season 1 would have looked like if Kim Cattrall were in the show. But Samantha never settled because Samantha was the creative one. You know, yes, she was doing PR, but she was the loose cannon of the show. She was the one that always had the creative verve, let's do this, to do that. Oh, try a little, experiment, darling. You know what I mean? She was the one that was of this quadrecta. She was the one that was the more kind of inventive. And so she was seen as the artsy one that never got settled. So I think the writers should kind of break that pattern a little bit and get out of that cliche. And maybe they're trying to do that with Miranda and Che. But Miranda's already starting to show kind of, you know what, I'm done with this creative person. So I do believe that, again, it's not going to end well for them too. Not because Che is gender non-conforming, because Che was born a woman and now isn't anymore. Not because of that. If their relationship falls apart, it's because Che is an artist. And that is the cliche of Sex and the City. Really silly. Now, the stupidest part of the episode was Carrie breaking up with Franklin, but breaking up while they were trying to figure out how she should properly phrase an ad sponsorship on her podcast, Sex and the City, about vaginal cleanser. And so a woman that spends her career writing a column about Sex and the City and talking about all things uncomfortable to talk about, but that we all love to read about. And here she is, and just like that, she was not capable to read a couple of lines about a vaginal cleanser. So they were trying to make a couple of jokes about the vajayjay, this, vajayjay, that, vajaz this, vajaz that. And she doesn't want to do it. With Franklin, she tries to rewrite the text. She tries to rewrite the script. She's thinking about it. The other character of the show that works on the podcast, the lady in the wheelchair, I forgot that character's name. She's very aggressive towards Carrie and says, like, snap out of it. She's like the Cher in Moonstruck. She's like, snap out of it, woman. Do the sponsorship or we're all going to be out of a job. And she's like, just do it. And Carrie finally decides she's going to do it after she rewrote it, or she kind of found a different phrasing for it. But it's too late. It's too late. The sponsorship, not just that one, apparently other sponsors also pulled out. There is no more money. The podcast is done for. And just like that, Sex and the City was over. So Carrie's podcast is over, but she's still together with Franklin, walking away from the closing of the podcast. And she says, what are we going to do next? Let's start something next. Let's try something new. And he's like, well, Carrie, you didn't want to see me on a Tuesday. I think I want more from you than just having sex on a Thursday. So I don't think I want to do another work endeavor with you because I want more. I could not keep this just professional between us. And I have the feeling you just want my body on a Thursday, darling. And then she's like, yes, I want your body on a Thursday, but I don't want your brain on a Tuesday. Keep giving me the body on a Thursday and we're good. We'll go. And he's like, no, honey, I also want the brain. She's like, tough titty. Bye. And she leaves. And it's over betwixt them. So that's done. So that relationship also kind of fell apart already in episode 2. So I guess now we're just waiting for Aiden to come back because we've seen them filming on the streets. Aiden is back in the show. So Aiden is gonna pop up and she's probably gonna be like, hi Aiden, let me date you and drop you again like a hot potato. You know, I mean, he's married, so I wonder if he's going to leave his wife for her. Aiden, poor Aiden. But yes, Nettie says in the chats, it is a total trope. Never date creatives because they're unreliable. If I had a nickel, every time somebody told me that, because, you know, I'm an artist too. If I had a nickel. Oh, Debbie, that's a great point. Debbie says in the chats, Carrie, after Franklin and her break up, she goes back home. She fires up her computer all over again, just like she did in Sex and the City, when she would be writing, you know, and I couldn't help but wonder. I wonder if the voiceovers will come back, says Debbie. I hope so. It only took them a whole season. I hope we're going to get to hear her voice as a voiceover again pretty soon in the next episodes. I mean, here's hoping, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Nettie says, I don't believe it, but I heard it 100 times during my 20s and 30s. Oh, Nettie. They always say, they say it. Oh, you're an artist? Lovely. You know how many times I was stood up on a date, or the date didn't even show up, or they would cancel? Like, okay, so I go out on a date. We have a fun time. Sooner or later, inevitably, the question pops up, what do you do for a living? I kid you not. 90% of the time, I see their faces drop when I say, I'm an artist. They go like, and I never see them again. Story of my life. Bible says, I always loved Carrie's commentary voiceover in Sex and the City. That was classic. Me too. That was classic. And that's what I've been saying to you guys. That's what I miss in this show. Like, it's not enough to just have her at the end of every episode say, and just like that, off screen, and just like that, something, something. I'm like, no, girl, talk to us, honey. Talk to us throughout the show. Give us that ditzy commentary that you always gave. It made the show more fun. Anyway, that was the review of episode 2. If you doth enjoyeth it, thumbeth it up, and subscribeth to my channel. And stay tuned for a review of episode 3 coming up as soon as I watch it. Love you loads, guys. Subscribe.